On today's episode of Homeworthy, we're celebrating soulful interior design. Homes filled with history, warmth, and deeply personal style. First, we visit a Brooklyn prop stylist whose cozy railroad apartment blends nostalgic charm with layered textures and rich colors. Next, we head to the Connecticut coast, where a designer and her daughter have created a timeless sea cottage, blending New England tradition with breezy and airy West Coast ease. And finally, we cross the Atlantic to London, where a creative consultant partnered with a close friend to reimagine his home. With incredible and deep colors, cozy and soulful textiles, and one treasured Brazilian painting at its heart, the space is a reflection of memory and meaning. From Brooklyn to the seaside to London, these homes prove that design is most powerful when it tells a story. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, Homeworthy. It's me, John. Welcome to my Brooklyn apartment. Come on in. I want to show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hello, I'm John Dittrich. I am a prop stylist based in New York City. I work primarily in commercial photography for home decor and lifestyle brands. We are in Brooklyn in Carroll Gardens in my apartment that I've lived for the past 2.5 years. It's my first kind of like big boy apartment that I live in on my own. And the first few years I was in New York, I was bopping around between roommates and kind of more impermanent stuff. Didn't have a lot of belongings, didn't have a lot of furniture. And so when I moved in here, I was finally ready to nest and make a home and really invest in my space. I did not immediately know that this was the one, that this apartment was the right one for me. When I first walked in, I was a little confused. The layout is a little funky. The broker brought me into what became my bedroom, and he said, this is the living room, which kind of makes sense because it's the room that's closest to the kitchen. The whole thing is like a long railroad. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this living room. It's a little small. I want something that felt a little more spacious that I could host people in. So he showed me the one side of the apartment, and then we came into this room where we are now, which he said, this is the bedroom. And I was like, oh, okay. And whoever had lived here before had left like a big king-size bed. But I was like, oh, this room is so, it's so nice and big and open, and it has this fireplace, and it has a little alcove. It could be a dining room. So I started to kind of imagine switching things up, layout-wise, what I could do with the space. It also had this really kind of dingy butter yellow color, the whole entire apartment, which made it, I think, a little hard at first to imagine what I could do with it. But the more time that I spent in the space, I could visualize what I could do, and I started to get excited about, oh yeah, I could like rearrange it this way, I could paint this, I could do that. And finally I was like, yeah, this is the one. I was going back and forth on it a little bit because it had most of the things that ticked my boxes, but the layout was a little funky. I wasn't sure. And I had a friend that I sent a video to, and she said, John, you have to take this apartment. Like, you can't say no to this one. You can't lose it. So I definitely thank her because it has, pretty much everything I was looking for. Welcome to my living room. This is kind of the main hangout spot. So when I was decorating, this was sort of the most important piece. I wanted this room to feel like open and airy, so I had this kind of lighter paint color. I really love in design like a kind of neutral base, but then adding some visual interest with color and pattern on top of it. So I have kind of this neutral vibe going on with like the couch and the walls, but then I have like patterned pillows and like colorful artwork. I have a lot of vintage artwork that I find just in stores in Brooklyn and New York City. This painting I found upstate at some barn that I had to dig through. Probably would have been $1 zillion at a Brooklyn vintage store, but I found it for pretty cheap. So I love to like find a deal whenever I can. I love these like kind of ocean blue curtains. That's another thing of just like, I like a strong pop of color on top of a neutral background. I'm also obsessed with lamps. So I'm gonna be pointing out a lot of lamps as we go through. They're like my favorite thing. I love finding a new cool lamp. I also love ceramics. I'm a prop stylist, so I'm always working with props, decor items, vases, bowls. This is by one of my like favorite ceramicists, A&K Ceramics. I also have in this room a lot of blankets, a lot of pillows, and that's kind of one way that my home is similar to my childhood home. It was always like cozy blankets everywhere, pillows everywhere. Another thing about my childhood home is that there's I guess a lot of tables. I remember one time when I was a kid, where my mom told me this story of when I was like really little and I was really mad at her. And I said, I'm gonna take away all your tables. And for some reason, that's the most threatening thing I could think of. And cut to me as an adult, and I have a lot of tables in this room in particular. This is a table that's actually like a desk, an antique desk that this decor store down the street, Painted Swan, they like refurb old pieces. I have this gorgeous naked man here. He's one of my favorites, one of my boyfriends. And then here we have my mantle, my fireplace. This was one of the things that I kind of wanted to have as I was looking for an apartment. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna find a fireplace, but if I do, that'd be great. So I was very excited when this place had a fireplace. I have a lot of books in here because it's not a working fireplace. So this kind of doubly serves as like kind of a cute aesthetic thing. Also functional and storage. I have a lot of props, again, as a prop stylist, so I have a lot of books. I also have a lot of just my own personal books, so it's a mix of like stuff I use for work and stuff that's mine. On top of the mantle are a lot of like just little trinkets and things that I love. I like to have pieces from my childhood home in my adult home. So like I have a couple little objects that were like on my mom's desk. I particularly love any kind of like little box or thing that you can just like put random stuff in. And that's just when I like have a little thing that I don't know what to do with, I just put it in one of the zillion little boxes that I have all around this apartment. This is a little piece of artwork that was hanging in my childhood home in the living room. I don't know what it is, but I really like it. Styling tip, if you want to make your room look dramatic and cool and stylish, just put a big branch in a vase. Go out and cut one off the tree. I don't think there's any one phrase or word that I would use to describe my personal style or the style of my home. I think it's really kind of an eclectic mix, and a lot of it is influenced maybe from the home I grew up in, specifically like the taste that my mother had. She really loved French country style, so there is some of that influence there, but I wanted to bring in some modern pieces, add a little bit of a modern aesthetic as well. So I like to really mix. I like to mix old and new. I like to mix different styles. I have certain things that I gravitate towards, but I really just like to play. And the important thing for me is that I have a home that is both sort of aesthetically pleasing, that has an eye for design, but that also feels comfortable and cozy and welcoming. So really my goal for the style of my space and for my home is to feel stylish but welcoming. I want my home to be a place where people can come and feel relaxed, feel at ease, feel at home. Over here we have more tables, little table here, little table here. Again, another lamp. I told you that I love lamps. This one's from the Nopo that kind of curates a collection of handmade pieces. This was handmade in Mexico. This is a painting that I did. I like to pretend that I'm an artist and kind of throw paint around and see what happens. This takes me way longer than it should to do like a simple painting because I don't really know what I'm doing, but I like to just kind of make things up. Another one of my favorites, I found this at Humble House, which is a vintage store in Borum Hill. Yeah, love lamps. Most railroad homes will have a second door. So there's a door here, which is actually sealed shut, so I can't even use it. It would be really nice to come in and be able to like come right into my living room, but that is not the case. There's a lot of like quirks about this apartment and there's windows that have been painted over and a lot of weird little things. So I wish this was a real door, but it's actually kind of nice because I can just put stuff up against it and it doesn't matter. Sometimes I have like my TV on this little stand. So there's some stuff that they did to sort of rehab this apartment that I wish that they hadn't done. Like in addition to this door, there's shutters that are sealed here. I wish that they had just like kept these, but they're basically like sealed and painted in. Because that would have been like really cool. If I end up staying here for a long time and just decide that I don't care about my deposit, I'll do some of this like work of maybe uncovering some of these older details. I also have a feeling that there's like a really cool maybe stone fireplace under here. I can see that there's some little like intricate designs that might like show up a little bit better underneath all this paint. You can see this archway has some really cool detail, and that's one of the things that I loved about this apartment was all of the detail, just adding that level of charm, that Brooklyn charm. But yeah, like there's gotta be some really nice like wood or something underneath some of these like trims everywhere. So it'd be cool to sort of uncover it, but I do also just think that it looks really nice as is with the white paint. The lighting fixtures in this apartment were all pretty unfortunate, so I had to like find some solutions for making it a little more fun and more me. So this was like a big lantern that I just found on Etsy and had somebody come and install it for me. I changed pretty much every lighting fixture throughout the apartment, and that really did a lot to elevate and change up the space. So if I'm hosting a party, this is kind of the main gathering space. I feel like even though I do have a dining area with an expandable table, everyone kind of just ends up here, like even when we're eating, just kind of all gathered around. This is where we like play games and just sit and chat. So if I'm having like a little get together, I'll probably have the food and drink kind of stationed in this little dining nook, and then everyone will kind of be hanging out here. My favorite part of my home is definitely this room that we're in right now, the living room, because this is where people gather. I have friends over for game nights. I have family stay with me, And, this is where we hang out at the beginning, end of the day. It's a nice space to just sit and chat. And that was my whole goal with this room and the apartment as a whole, was for it to just feel comfortable and easy. And so any space where people can feel at home, that's my favorite thing. That's my favorite part. So this room, I think, encapsulates that the most. Speaking of my dining room, I would love to show you. So come follow me into this little alcove. This is where, actually, I don't really sit and eat here that often, but every once in a while. But this is usually where like I lay out all the food if I'm having like a gathering, little snacks and things. I have done, me and my friend Molly hosted like a little paint night where I styled like a vignette in the front or in the center of the table, and then we had people sitting around the table and painting. So we do like fun little things like that. My favorite part about my dining room is this painting right here. So this is one of the quirky things about this apartment. This was a window. I don't know why it was a window, but it appears to have been one. It's basically just this like frame and then like a boarded over wall inside the frame. So when I moved in, I was like, what am I gonna do with this giant rectangle? So my sister is an artist, and I had her find a canvas that was like the exact size of the window and do this beautiful painting for me. And then I painted the frame. Basically, the painting is like hung on top of the wall, and then this window frame I just painted gold to kind of fake look like a picture frame. My other favorite thing in this room is this hutch right here, which is probably my favorite piece of furniture. I love that it kind of feels like a heritage piece, even though I bought it. I didn't inherit it from anyone, but it feels like a family piece of furniture. I felt like a real grown-up when I bought this. And when I saw it in the store, I went home and measured, but it was really tight to fit it in this nook. I had to like saw off pieces of the trim at the top and in the middle here to get it to fit. But if you look at the bottom, there's like barely a centimeter of room to for this thing to fit. I love it. It's such a pretty piece, and it's a great place to kind of store and display props and decor pieces, and also just things that I can like grab to use when I'm having a party, if we're having a little drink, or little snacks that I need like bowls for. I have like way too many teacups. I should really just host a big tea party because I have all these teacups. The last thing that I want to show you in my dining room is this photo that I love so much. This is actually me in the middle there and my siblings, and we are sitting on our driveway amidst all of these shoes because my mom was like getting rid of shoes or something and wanted to like memorialize them. I don't know if she brought out some of the other shoes that she wasn't getting rid of, but basically she put all these shoes on the driveway and had us all pose with them. And I think it's such a cool, weird picture. And it sort of encapsulates this idea of like resourcefulness and kind of having these projects that with your belongings, or just kind of like the stuff of life. Like we have all this stuff, and it's all about like making use of them, turning it into like a cool photo or art project. And so that's definitely like a trait that has been inherited to me, is like, what can I use this for? What can I do with this? What weird thing can I do with all this stuff that I'm getting rid of or whatever? So I love this picture. So this is the light fixture that I found on Etsy from a little boutique that's based in Turkey. And I loved the shape, I loved the fabric, I love the color. If you can't tell yet, my favorite colors are blue and yellow. So those are kind of the colors that I like to play with and add in my home. This room is the most bold paint color of any of the rooms in my home. I wanted, I don't know, I wanted this dining room to feel very cozy. And so I went with this dark blue. I was really nervous about it before I painted it because it is like dark and this room is already a little bit dark. But once I started putting on this blue paint, I was like, oh yes, this is very right. It kind of reminds me of the blue in my childhood home that was in like my bedroom carpet was like a kind of blue. There was like a little living room that had a similar blue to this. So I really love this color. This is a rug that I also got on Etsy. I think it's vintage. I tried to get like really strategic about where I was getting stuff. Like these chairs I actually got recently. I bought them from a restaurant. I think like in decorating a home, no matter what your budget is, you kind of have to make some choices on where is it worth it for you to splurge, where your priorities in terms of where you can spend a little bit more, and where can you save money and be a little bit cheaper and get some cheaper stuff that might actually look just as good. So I did a lot of searching on Etsy, Facebook Marketplace, a lot of like vintage hunting, and I was really specific about, you know, where can I kind of spend a little bit more? That would be something like this hutch, and where can I like cut some corners, like buying some cheap chairs that a restaurant is getting rid of and will still look cute and stylish. So I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and it really was a wonderful place to grow up. It was the perfect like size city. It was big enough where there was opportunities, things to get involved in, but small enough where it had, you know, a nice community feel. It felt safe. It felt like a supportive environment. But I did know as I was finishing high school that I really wanted to expand my horizons. I wanted to experience different cities. I felt, you know, ambitious about what I could possibly do for career and work. So I really wanted to get out there and sort of have a little adventure. So I started out in LA. I moved there first for school and worked in LA for a few years after school. And then at a certain point, it kind of became clear to me that I was ready for something new, ready for a big change. And New York had always kind of been in the back of my mind and something, a city that I was really drawn to. So yeah, I just sort of did it. When I moved to New York, I didn't really have a plan. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I didn't have a job when I first moved here. I just had really a gut feeling that it was time to go. So it's been quite a journey since I left Omaha, and I think I've just really been kind of following my nose and seeing where life takes me. So right off my dining room is my guest bedroom, little tiny guest bedroom. So let's come in here. This is actually one of the first rooms that I like really worked on because I had a guest coming, which is always great. I love when people are coming over because it's a reason to like get things done. So my friend Laura was coming to stay, and I was like, okay, she needs to have a nice place to stay, so I'll get this together. So this room doesn't have any windows, so it's like kind of dark. And so I wanted to do something with it that would brighten it up a little bit, but still keep it cozy. So I really wanted to go for some color in this room. This is the one room where I didn't like buy a bunch of paint samples. I just sort of picked one. I bought the paint. I was like, okay, let's just try it. And I did it, and it worked out pretty well. I got this day bed from IKEA, and I painted it the same color as the walls because I wanted this sort of monochromatic look with this kind of turquoise, periwinkle, aqua-ish, sea blue. I don't know what you call it. But I wanted that like monochromatic and then like a punch of strong color with the yellow in the bedding and stuff. And then I have this plethora of pillows for you to plop yourself down onto. I love pillows. A couple of these I got in Paris, thank you very much, from this like cute little boutique called Jamini. It's like a Indian, Franco-Indian design store. So this bed actually pulls out into a king and basically takes up the entire room. But I always just pull it all the way out so that whoever's in here can just really lounge and relax. And that's one of the reasons why I actually took off the door that was on here, because it wouldn't even open when the king bed was pulled out. But I also like it because it just lets in a lot of like more air from the living room. And then I put this like curtain here to kind of divide the rooms, and so you can take the curtain off to get some, I guess, like darken the room or get some privacy from the living room. So this is the other side of that window that I showed you in the dining room. These little shelves were already here when I moved in, but I painted the inside this like darker blue. And here's another space where I have like a lot of knickknacks and things, and some of my favorite books, mostly the blue books, go here because I'm crazy and kind of color code my books. But there's a lot of little fun pieces on here that I love. Like, I love this think sign. My mom worked for IBM in like the 80s or something, I think, and she had this little think sign on her desk, and I found a similar one on eBay or something, and I got it. And there's my mom right there. I like to have, some really specific, well-chosen photos of family in specific spots. So I also have like my mom and dad right there, and just nice little reminders of home. I was really lucky with this apartment in New York City to find an apartment that has some pretty good storage. So I have a lot of closets, which is nice. I'm not gonna open my closets for you because that's too personal. But yeah, I love my closets. And then on this side of the room, there's just a little desk that I never really sit at, but I do stuff papers in the drawers. So it's a little storage place. And when I have people come stay, they might like sit here and do their makeup or fix their hair or something. And I'm just perpetually praying that this mirror doesn't fall off the wall. Some of these walls I feel like are kind of crumbly. It's an old building, but it's holding together pretty well so far. Here's another boarded up window. It's always like, why did they board these up? What's going on? But for this one, I decided to like paint the inside of it a darker blue, and then I have all of my little Beyonce postcards posted there, because we gotta have the queen in here somewhere. So there were a lot of things that I did to kind of put my personal stamp on this home. One of the first things I did was I painted the whole thing. I first chose a color for this living room and my bedroom, which insanely took about 10 different samples to go through, because it's like basically white, but those neutrals, those like off-white colors can be challenging and have different kind of undertones. So I went really crazy picking that paint color, and then I went for some bolder colors in like my dining room and my guest room. So painting was kind of the first step. And then it was bringing in furniture, which I basically had nothing, because when I lived with roommates, either they had stuff or the stuff that I brought in was, things that I got very cheaply or at a sample sale at my old job. And I really didn't want to feel too tied down by my stuff. So I didn't really invest. But when I came here, I was ready to build a home and ready to invest more. So then it became searching for furniture and the right pieces to sort of add some personality. This little nook in the middle of my apartment is actually the entryway. So when you come in the door right here, you either go that way towards the living room or that way towards my bedroom. This one big long apartment, and you start here. But I really like having a little space, a little nook to kind of come in, set things down, a place to like greet people. I think it's nice to have a sort of foyer entry moment as a buffer from the rest of the apartment. So I have a little drop zone right here. If I don't put my keys there, I'll never find them. And then like hooks to throw your coat or your bag. And since this was just like a little teeny nook, I decided I'd throw a lot of art on the walls to kind of draw your eye up and just kind of have a little fun project for myself of filling this kind of gallery. So I love this little table, another one of my beloved tables, a vintage piece that I found in the neighborhood. And then, yeah, a lot of artwork that I really like, including this picture that I found that's a vintage photograph of this street, and this piece of art that's a drawing from my Uncle Tom. I don't even think he knows that I have this, but he drew this for a book that my mom wrote in her 20s, and I really love that. And there's a print also from my sister, the same sister that did the painting in my dining room. There's a print of a painting she did of this landscape with trees and people hidden in the trees. They're all playing musical instruments. And then from here we can head into my bedroom. So let's go this way. Okay, so this is my bedroom. This is the first room that I saw when I first saw the apartment. And yeah, this is the one where the broker said this is the living room, which does make sense because the kitchen's right there. But I just decided to change everything up and use the bigger room as the living room and this room as my bedroom, even though there's essentially a kitchen in my bedroom. So this is another space like the living room that I wanted to have sort of like a neutral base, just like a relaxing, calm foundation, and then add some color, like with the textiles, with the pillows. Here I have my dresser, which I really love. For the first few months that I lived here, I just had a pile of clothes on my floor because I couldn't find the perfect dresser that was like the right size. I wanted something that was like both tall and wide, and then I found this at a antique store, and it was blue, which is perfect. Another lamp. We know I love lamps. This bowl is usually filled to the brim with receipts, but I've tidied up for you guys. So this is where I toss all my receipts and then hopefully organize them someday later. I told you I love my family photographs. This is my favorite picture of my mom and my grandpa. I just love it. I love both of them, and they both look so chic. This was like in the 70s. Most of my artwork is vintage, and I either got it at like a little antique stand or found this one on Cherish, I think. I have a bunch of my journals up here. This goes in with like the kind of record keeping theme that like that photo in my dining room of my mom taking this photo of all the shoes. I just love keeping records, whether it's through photos or through writing. And so these are all my journals, at least the ones from the past several years since I've lived in New York. And then I have a bunch more in storage somewhere. And then over here, I have this little dining table, little tiny dining nook. I thought I would just embrace the fact that my kitchen is right off my bedroom and have this little table and chairs. So it's nice because I can like sit here in the morning and have a cup of coffee. I actually end up like eating at this little table a lot, even like dinner sometime or having a little nightcap or something. So I love this little table. So over here, I have a cute little bookshelf. All these shelves were already here when I moved in, so that was really nice. I guess this is the kind of like blonde beige book area. I always like to have just like little teeny tokens and sprinkles of little objects that I love hiding on bookshelves, like this little owl that was on my mom's desk, or these little guys that have been sort of like good luck charms since I was a kid. I got these in London at a flea market. Just this little elephant guy and this little this little die that tells you what to do if you're bored. Read, tidy room, which is what I was doing this morning before you got here. More lamps. You know I love lamps, if you know me at all yet. These are from Notary Ceramics. They're based on the Pacific Northwest somewhere. But this ceramicist that I really love that makes these beautiful lamps with these cute shades. And this right here is a walk-in closet that is my prop closet where I keep all my props for work. I am not going to open that for you because, again, that is too personal. And it's a mess right now. But yes, very lucky to have a lot of storage in this apartment. That was one of the main things that I was looking for, was storage. I had to have a place to keep my props and my stuff. It was storage. It was have a space for guests. It was have an apartment that had some charm and character. And then the fireplace, that was the icing on the cake. So as I said, I'm a prop stylist, and that career has definitely influenced my taste in decor. In working for different home furnishing and home decor brands, I have to really be aware of design trends, what people are gravitating towards, what's selling. I have to stay modern and current, and balance that with my own personal style and taste. So this apartment, decorating this was really like a fun, kind of playful experience of getting to explore my style based on, where my taste has always been, how I grew up, and then integrating that with sort of where I am now and the more modern aesthetics that I've acquired from my work. So the other thing too about my job is that it has me constantly looking for design inspiration. I'm constantly seeing, images of homes, and those always really excite me. And so I see something that I love, I see something that I'm really drawn to, and I think, oh, I can play with that in my home. So just being immersed in the design world and the styling world has it constantly on my mind. What can I do? What can I do to play with my home to make it feel mine, to make it feel fun and exciting? Let's make our way into the kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen, my tiny little kitchen. It is small, but I love it because it has some really nice light. It feels, very, very happy and sunny. And I was about to say I like cooking in here, but that's a lie because I don't really cook that much, sorry to say. It's New York City. I order takeout a lot. But I have this little chair for if the rare moments that I am cooking, I can have a friend sit and chat. In my dream world, I have like a big kitchen that basically has like a living room in it so that people can chat. Because I do love, even though I don't cook much, I do love the whole vibe of the kitchen. That's like hang out, make a meal. I do have some aspirational cookbooks in the corner, and this countertop here was like a kind of ugly granite that I didn't love, so I recovered it in this contact paper in this pretty blue color, but don't get too close because I only did kind of an okay job here. But it makes me much happier to look at this blue. I have some plants in the window and more little trinkets from my childhood home. My mom really liked roosters. Her mom was Swedish, so this is a little Swedish rooster. I have a few little roosters around. And then I have some more family photos, Christmas cards on my fridge. So on this hidden side of my fridge, this is where I keep all my magnets from my Broadway shows. I love theater, and every time I see a show, I get a little magnet. So that's a little kind of hide and seek moment. If you happen to be on this side of my kitchen, you can see all of the shows that I've been to. Some more like vintage art in this little room that I really love. I got this from this place called Joliet. That's like an online store for like French antiques. Right here I have my mother's famous kolache recipe that my sister printed and laminated for me, or copied and laminated, with her little notes. Even though I said I don't cook that much, when I do it, I'm pretty good because I can follow a recipe. I'm a good baker because I can really follow a recipe, which you have to do when you're baking. And so I've made these kolaches before, and they're really delicious. The idea of home has always been something that has been really fascinating to me and really important to me. I had a really strong relationship to the home that I grew up in, not only like the physical space, the house, but also just the environment and the people. And I think that's sort of a theme or a question of my entire life is, what is home? How do you feel at home? And some of that is just your general environment. It's the people in your life that make you feel at home. It's being secure in yourself, as well as the people around you, feeling comfortable with where you're at. And that is a more spiritual place, and it also, I think, is reflected in your physical space. So a home should be someplace where you feel safe. It should be someplace where you feel like the most yourself. And so when I'm putting a home together, it's not only, a reflection of the person that lives there in terms of their style and their aesthetic taste, but it's also a reflection of who they are and how they want to find comfort in the space, how I want to find comfort in my home, and how I want other people to find comfort here. Because as much as I love stuff and things and pretty furniture and pretty dishes and all of the stuff, it kind of doesn't mean anything without the people to share in the space and the people to share in your home, because it's really the people in your life that make you feel like home.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Leanne.
I'm Ally.
Welcome to my home in Connecticut.
Come on in.
This summer, spend the hottest months of the year in style with Homeworthy as we visit the most extraordinary homes around the world. From the sun-soaked shores of the Hamptons to the classic beachfronts of Nantucket to the vibrant courtyards of Morocco, be sure to subscribe to Homeworthy's summer series to make every day feel like a vacation. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Leanne Thornton. This is my daughter.
Hi, I'm Ally Resor, and we are the partners and principal designers behind Leanne Thornton Interiors.
Welcome to my home in Rowayton. We've been living in this house almost a year. We have loved the area for the last 22 years, always scoping out what could be available. And this beautiful seaside cottage became available about last August, and it's magical. It's a beautiful, magical place to live. When we first saw the house, it was in wonderful condition. The shiplap on the walls, the lighthouse out the living room window, I knew right then it was going to be our house. It's tiny but perfect in every way, and it's just it's a very well-built home. Decorating this house was incredibly easy. Everything that I added and have created matched the interiors perfectly. It's as if everything that I've been purchasing for the last 30, 40 years of my life knew it was going to end up in this house someday. My style, I believe you could call classic traditional, but I believe there's so much freedom to it and there's so much lightness and beautiful use of fabrics, but not overly done. I think it's a very fresh approach and welcoming approach to design.
In my house in Charleston, at my mom's house here in Rowayton, we work together, so we're FaceTiming all day, constantly working, but we're also walking around our houses saying, maybe that goes there, maybe this moves here. Like, we are constantly back and forth, and it's really lucky because not many people can understand your style and aesthetic as much as we happen to. So it's been very fun kind of helping her with little things around the house.
You've had a lot of influence.
Yeah.
A lot of influence.
But I mean, my whole house is basically filled with furniture from our life. And what's so lucky is my mom has recovered and just redone pieces of furniture that are just such good quality that have lasted forever. So it's been fun getting this place together. It's a dream house.
It's a dream. Welcome to my living room. It's a very special spot in the house. It's the main entertaining area. It serves as the TV room, sometimes the dinner room. It's where we gather. And I knew when I first saw this house, this was the room. There's a view out this window that looks out to the lighthouse in the Long Island Sound. I looked out there and I thought, if I can be in this house and look at this gorgeous lighthouse, I knew right then this was for us. The funny thing is that our furniture really worked in a room that would look over a lighthouse.
It really did.
The red, white, and blue theme, and maybe I've leaned a little bit into the red more as I've lived here. I'm a blue and white girl, always have been.
I think I've brought you more into the
I
red
think
world.
you have. I think you have. But bringing in the sofas that we've had for years, the white slipcovers with the monogram, and these are all very California-inspired pieces of furniture, and the beautiful legs, and adding all the textiles, all of the, wrapping them in the Indian blankets and embroidery on all the pillows. All of this just feels incredibly well-suited to this environment. Bringing in old prints that are now discontinued because all the good ones are. This is an old hollyhock print from Lee Joffa that's done in beautiful colors now, but no one can get their hands on the red and teal, and I think it's so special.
You have a couple fabrics like that.
I do. I have the old hero fabrics.
Yes.
And really just like creating this type of seating area. Not everyone likes to have sofas or thinks to have sofas done like this. Sometimes they face them, but I really love bringing people as close together as I possibly can. And I am that number counter. I'm thinking, okay, 7-foot sofa, 3 people, boom, boom, 2 on the ottoman when you're having cocktails. So, you can pull that up for extra. I'm always thinking about floater pieces as well. So this room brings absolute joy and glee to me. It is all of the things I want to see on an everyday basis. And my beautiful collection of books, all of our collection of blue and white that has just been from Nantucket to just everywhere. We've been collecting these things.
I think what I also love about this room in particular is that, like you said, this is the room sometimes we eat in. This is where we do Christmas. This is where we hang out and watch movies.
Light a fire.
I like, and now I'm this way too, we're not afraid to have white sofas. And we're all over them, and dogs and babies, and I think that wrapping them in these textiles, it's such a fun way to show an easy way of living.
Nothing's too precious. And yes, beautiful fabrics and good pieces of furniture. I've had these chairs for, I want to say 30 years. I think I've had these sofas for 25. This ottoman probably for 30 years. Everything's gotten recovered in time. And, it's what I tell my clients. Buy well the first time and just live with it and let it evolve with you. And whether it's the fabric you're recovering in or, changing it to a different room. But I like the placement and the symmetry of things. I love lampshades. Some may say I have a problem.
You have a lighting problem.
I love lighting. I love low lighting, mid lighting, sconces, lamps. I love just having the light envelop you. And every night or every morning I come down, depending on the weather in the morning, and I just get everything lit. At night, I light all the candles in this room. Everything, as you can see, my books are a very big part of my decor, and those I've just been collecting just forever. And they're all on homes, and some of these date back to, the 70s, but they're a big part of why I do what I do and the energy of my home.
If you had to pick,
Oh boy.
what is your favorite piece in the living room?
It
Can't be the bench because that's mine.
Oh boy. Well, that's pretty good. I would say, this is one of the best collected rooms for me because it has all of my favorite things. The 3-tiered etagere that I'm able to style and put my books on. But these sofas, I think my monogram sofas are probably my favorite thing.
We've had those for so long.
Yeah, they mean a lot to me.
And your strawberry print.
And my strawberry print.
Where did you get that?
That is from an antique store in Los Angeles off of La Brea, and it has always had a special place in every home we've ever lived in. Yeah.
I feel like I have such a memory of that just being ever since I was little.
And if you look at this room, it's a lot of different prints, and the ability to welcome mini checks, big checks, flowers, little ginghams, Indian textiles. I feel like chintz on the lampshades. I feel like if you can get that level and balance right in the patterns, they really tell the story of the room. So that's where this room is. It's lovely during the day. It's beautiful at night. And it's pretty in the summer, and it
Really
welcomes
cozy to
Christmas like no other place. So this is one of my favorite rooms. The bar.
I want to call it our Christmas bar. We do use it all year round.
And I decorate it, and I put little white twinkling lights in there. And there's just something about having this spot in the house for holidays, but it's also dressing up the bar. And it's not just about the alcohol and the glasses. It's about your favorite little trinkets, your collections, beautiful hotel silver that we've been collecting for years, and
The lamp.
the fun lamp. I love a bar lamp. All of my William Yoward crystal that has been probably one of my first collections I started on. And, just storing the books in there and the little ribbons around all the little Yoward pieces, and Darling from this little French company for bottles, these cute little aprons. It all just means a lot to me. And Ally's husband, when we have a holiday, will come over.
He's the bartender.
He's the bartender. So in the winter, we are martinis. We
Whiskey
are
sours.
whiskey sours.
That's our Christmas drink of choice
That
this year.
has become that. And then in the summer, it's margaritas and chilled rosé. And it's just a nice little spot to have everything here. So when you're having people over, you're not back and forth into the kitchen. I find that so not fun to have to disappear and go find it. You have it all here, and all your company's right there. So right off of the living room is the dining area, and the kitchen's right next door. And in here, this area is the entry. And I feel like it's just that walk in, you get what the house is the second you walk in the door. And creating personalized items of hats and darling little lamps and plants and my favorite beach bag is just exactly what I want to see when I walk into somebody's house. Nothing too perfect, and just a slice of what really happens here. The best compliment that I've ever received about my home and my interiors would be a long time ago when my husband came to the home I was living in, and he said to me, "This is the way I want to live. This is the way people should live." And I thought, wow, that's exactly what I want people to feel like. Welcoming, invited, stay a while. They know great food's gonna be here, music will be going, and I think to have people associate me with that feeling that they want to have is just a big compliment.
Definitely. For me, and I know this sounds so like, oh, she's sitting right next to me, so I have to say this, but for me, whenever my girlfriends have come and visited in Charleston and they've been staying at my house and they have been there and said, "This feels like your mom's house."
Oh,
That is the best compliment, because I know that that means it feels warm, it's inviting, it's well curated, it smells good, it has good food and coffee, cooking, and all of that.
I love it.
As you can imagine, growing up with Leanne as my mom, I have been able to learn so much about design, keeping a home, entertaining, taking care of your family. The list really could go on and on. But I think one of the most important things that my mom has taught me is to collect what you love and to buy what you love and to be discerning with that. Like, there's no one that I would rather go to an antique fair with than her, because she's discerning. She's not sold by something just because it's cute. She really wants it to have a purpose, and that's kind of how I've learned to live with everything in my house too, and to not treat anything too precious. I think the things we buy are beautiful and they're meant to be lived with and used, and that's a really great thing that we've all kind of picked up on from you.
It's like walking through a flea market, and I'm like, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, and she's good. And then we always end up leaving. My older sister and I always end up leaving with maybe one thing after we've eyed 20, and they always end up being the best pieces.
Welcome into the dining room. This is another favorite room, and tonight we are prepping for a little entertaining, which is happening a lot in this house lately. Table settings. They're just my everything, and the collections that we have been using. This is an old style dish that we've had forever. They still sell them. It's from the Ivy in Los Angeles, and
We all have them now.
all my girls have them, and it's kind of like a staple when you live in LA. But mixing them with all of our other, dishes and the collections that I have, I started collecting china for all of the girls on their first birthday, so they'd have their own set of china when they moved into their own place. Today, we set our table with the Ivy, and then of course with our favorite linens from Heather Taylor Home. And I love the sweet approach with the bows and the lace, and then layering the placemats, and we could go on and on and on about the tables. This is a gorgeous piece that I got at Trade Secrets this year, which is up in Lime Rock, and I saw that and grabbed it. And everything else in this area are things that I've just truly, I say the word collected, but that is what I've been doing, is putting together collections that I could use all the time, and incorporating, plants and favorite baskets. And I kind of love the whole idea about, exposed shelves, the open shelves. And I know that's sort of a trend, but when I think of the way I do it, I don't think of it as trendy.
No.
I think of it as just being able to use and have access to all of your beautiful things. And this
What was this piece?
I bought this on First Dibs 15 years ago.
Oh.
And it was used in a show house in LA, and I bought it immediately. I loved it. And then since then, I've just been able to, it kind of cycles through. Different china we're using. The holidays, I fill it with little lights and red gingham hearts and tons of fun access. It's sort of like my little, it's where I can like show off our stuff and put in the big lamps on here and the fun shades. It just creates all of the layers. I mean, if you could just have something in your home, like this right here says so much. But this room really is pretty great with all of the windows and the cafe curtains, which I just absolutely adore in any room, but especially in here. There was a photograph I saw once about windowsills filled with flowers, and it just always had me, I was so enamored with it. And then when we moved into this house, I had all these windowsills that I could use the topiaries, the potted white geraniums, and those fun antique pots. And I just think that level of the sun coming in, the cafes, the wrought iron, and the geraniums is just very, very English. And I love that.
I think it also goes back to kind of what we've always said is you romanticize the everyday. And
Yeah.
I think that doing this just on a random Wednesday, having the house look like this is what you do anyways.
Yeah, I have to say this is a nice energy in this house, that plants belong with everything. Flowers, it's the indoor-outdoor life that we talk about. There are a lot of plates in my collection. I have to say, I think these are some of my favorite. These are burley, and they are called Asiatic pheasant. And there's something just so beautiful about the design. And I've collected, I think, probably 50 dinner and 50 salad plates over the years. And it's all about how many people can you serve if you're just going to have a buffet. And then all of this furniture has been repurposed and repurposed. These are old Rose Harlow dining chairs that I've had for easy over 30 years. And they've been slip covered in an old Travers linen, which I like how worn it is. It's got like an old Ralph Lauren vibe. And one of my favorite things to do for myself and for clients are a host and hostess chair. And these smaller scale wingback chairs just feel so comfortable. You could sit here all day. You could make this your workspace if you want. And that I love that idea too. And then popping in a big old Ralph Lauren wing chair that really doesn't have any spot in here, but it's really fun to cuddle up with like a cookbook, or when I'm cooking, I'll have a glass of wine and sit over there. It's just, it adds a layer of comfort to the room. And this is an old farm table that we bought in Massachusetts when we first moved to Connecticut. So there's a lot of history in this room. This is a store that used to be in Los Angeles called Brenda Anton. And this is one of the first pieces my husband and I bought together 30 years ago. And it has traveled from one coast to the other and has had many different lampshades. But it's just so charming and happy, and it's patinaed so nicely, and one of my favorites. This dresser is so great. We've had it restained because it's had a lot of use, but this houses all of the linens. So collections aplenty that I've just been working on, and they just mean a lot to me. I love bringing them out. They all have different memories. There's holidays and kids' birthdays, and I remember them all, and I use them all. I use everything. We're in the kitchen, obviously, heart of the home, and
What cake did you make? Because I came downstairs at 7 a.m. and I was in like a wonderland of scent.
okay, this is the banana cake.
Yum.
So I make the banana cake and then I frost it with cream cheese frosting. Sometimes I'll add coconut, but during the summer months when we have these gorgeous flowers, I love to decorate my cakes. And I think I learned this little trick from the Ivy in Los Angeles. They had served these beautiful cakes just covered in tea roses, all different colors. So when we're entertaining, like we're going to tonight, I'll just bring in some hydrangeas, beautiful little garden roses in the pink, and then just these green leaves. And honestly, I just start decorating, and I'll fill it, and I'll go around the top, I'll go around the base, and it's just really pretty on a platter. It looks so great.
It's funny because I see, obviously, I'm more on the internet than you are, and I see so many people my age starting to do this and starting their journey entertaining, and I kind of see it, and I'm like,
yeah, been there.
I've had that in my house forever.
Been there, done that.
You really are more of a trendsetter than you think.
Oh, the young people.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I feel like all of our birthday cakes and everything were always decorated like this.
Well, this kitchen is tiny but mighty, and it just, I keep everything around here that I need. Obviously, my strong-armed cookbook collection is right there, but really it's like such an enjoyable kitchen to be in. And with the breakfast nook right there, the dining room, just all the fresh light, it's a joy.
How long do you like these?
Well, you know what? It's funny. Sometimes I will just get in a little shorter.
And just kind of place it on top?
Yeah, but like, look at how sweet. It's just really, and
really
then we'll
pretty.
just fill the whole thing.
I'll make some of these shorter too.
And I love how it just all kind of repeats everything else that's happening in our house. You know, it repeats the china. It just all kind of just blends so seamlessly. I love that. Maybe another rose right there. I think the love of entertaining started for me when I was a young girl. I remember my siblings' birthdays, my parents' birthdays, bake sales at school, and I'd want to bring in cakes in 3rd grade. There is a comfort about taking care of people. There's also the idea of using all of the beautiful things that you have, and it's like interior design in a way. I put as much thought into every piece that's on the counter and everything that we're eating and planning a menu as I do into designing a living room.
Yeah.
So it's in my DNA. Entertaining is in my DNA, and I've got ideas for these later, and if I can keep all of my limes that I'll squeeze for margaritas and fresh homemade lime tortilla chips, and just keeping all of the things that create our life around me just feel very special. Entertaining is such an important part of my life. I help encourage clients, obviously my daughters. When I'm decorating a house, when I'm designing my own home, that is on the forefront. It is very important. And it's not just limited to a dining room. I'm envisioning how the living room is going to work. Sometimes I'll be walking past the living room and count how many seats are in it and think, oh, that's good for a buffet. I can get 12 people in there. And we have a beautiful wraparound deck here, so I can get 3 different eating areas. And I keep so many linens in the house. There's a constant changeover of napkins and linens, and bringing out different sets of china for different occasions. I have given all of my daughters books on entertaining to write lists and recipes of their own, to create music lists. It's all so important to me. It goes hand in hand with living in my home. It's like one of the first things I think about. And I think with the girls, Ally has 2 sisters,
It's been a masterclass.
Yeah.
It has truly been a masterclass, whether we signed up for it or not. It has been, I mean, we couldn't have grown up in this house without really absorbing so much of what my mom does, even for just our family on a weeknight. It doesn't have to be a big dinner party happening. It doesn't have to be guests coming over. It could just be the 5 of us having dinner, and there's always fresh flowers cut. There's always the gorgeous linens, and keeping the music going, a great playlist. It's just...
And tradition of recipes.
Yeah,
we like to keep traditions going.
I think that you do a great job of making every day romantic and celebratory. And
Thank
that's
you.
a big thing of what my sisters and I try to emulate in our houses.
Well, you're doing it. Welcome to my primary bedroom. This room is like living in a treehouse. It is everything that I wanted in design, from all the crochet, the quilts, the cable knit, the creamy white drapes. Everything feels very seaside cottage here, and that was the intention. We found this cute little antique stool, a little place in Fairfield, and I love the idea of just bringing in wildflowers and keeping it super not fussy, but just very bright and fresh. And I do love having this room so bright, but so warm and layered at the same time. So everything that this room has is exactly what I had envisioned for it. And the wallpaper from Leah Connell, to me, just says seaside cottage. The creamy white linen draperies with the sheared valance. It's casual but tailored at the same time. The Porto lights, the quilts, all of these layers, the cotton striped rugs, the porthole mirror, it's so comforting and so fresh. And this is a room you want to come in the afternoon and get cozy with a book in a snowstorm, all of it. And it's very fresh and feels like summer at the beach, and adding all these beautiful linens with all the embroidery detail, and it all feels very, very comforting. This is an old light fixture from probably 2 houses ago that we added Porto linens onto to make this shaded pendant, and we have one over on the small lamp as well. They match linens of the same. Porto is one of my favorite bed linen companies, and I love mixing that with Matouk. All of the Lisa Fine shades. She's one of my favorite fabric designers. But I think for me, the wallpaper in here is just my favorite. And honestly, this is another room where scale works with many patterns if you really blend it. Whereas this Rose Tarlo fabric, which is incredible, called Bloomsbury, it just works with the Lisa Fine, and it works with the Leah O'Connell and the Porto with the quilting, because it's just the scale of everything is blending. And I believe because the room is so white, it's letting those little moments just do their thing. I think a favorite room that we share together, probably 2 rooms. The guest room that we both have put a lot of effort into because that's where you stay, but it also is just a little jewel box of a room. And I have a design studio up on the 3rd floor, and that we've really collected and cultivated and made it into a very user-friendly but super pretty spot.
We've always had great offices around Greenwich, and we've always made them gorgeous because everything you touch just happens to be. But our studio upstairs, it really speaks to the soul of our company, I think.
That's a great way to put it.
It's warm, it's inviting, it's welcoming, and it's like the most aspirational place to work. She's very lucky to get to be there every day.
This is the guest room. This is the happy, comfortable, I call it the little Nantucket 4th of July room. And
I call it my room.
of course
when
you
I'm
do.
here.
Of course you do.
What's lucky for me is when I go on a work trip, because I live down in Charleston, when I go on a work trip, I get to come up and stay with my parents. And I get to stay in what is the guest room. Sometimes it's my nephew's bedroom, but I think I stay here the most. So I'm gonna call it my room for the purpose of this tour. And I mean, it has the Porto pillows, it has the Pottery Barn, the Porto quilt, the Land's End quilt. It's perfect.
It's layered.
I really never want to leave this room. I love where I live and I love my husband, but it's hard to leave this room sometimes.
I love the accents in here, and I do really love the textures of the Porto, and I love bringing in like the yummy quilts and all of the crocheted linens. They just have such a like heirloom, peaceful vibe to them. And we started collecting samplers. These were made hundreds of years ago. Nantucket sells many of these in their antique shops. It's probably my favorite. But what I love is putting these old bows from Count and Tout from London, or Colfax and Fowler, sorry, behind them all. I think it just creates such a warm, happy, but yet like classic old traditional look. And then bringing in more modern lighting. So I really love that combination. And one thing, if I were asked what is my favorite thing in this room, there's many. These baskets, which have been reproduced many a times, all wonderful reproductions. These are the original baskets from a very special store in New York that is not there anymore, called Triage. It was up on East 75th Street for years, and that's Bunny Williams' original store. A treasure trove of indoor furniture, garden furniture, probably some of my favorite antiques that I own in the house. These are original French baskets with the scallop liner, and I have about 4 of them that I've scattered around the house. I love them. I love them for packing away my grandson's, toys or clothing when he's here, and just knowing that these are so close to my heart and that I've collected those, and then adding in my samplers. This one especially with the windmill and the cute house, and
That's my favorite.
And the flowers. It just looks like Nantucket, doesn't it? I know. It's very, very, very special. I grew up obsessed with the environment around me. It was taking notice everywhere. At school, people's homes, ballet class, anything. I was taking in the aesthetic that I was surrounded by. And I knew it made me feel a certain way. And when I was on my own, just buying decorations for my tree felt very important. I knew collections would be very, very important for me. And that's obviously been going on for a while. I'm still collecting. I have been drawn to, I think in the 80s, I was really drawn to Sister Parish, House and Garden, Old House Beautiful, 1981, I remember, like amazing issues. And I've just always thought my home and what I've surrounded myself and my family with was extremely important. And it was never something that was too precious. It was something that felt wonderful and just made you feel very happy. So probably I could say, yeah, I think I've always been curious about this world, and it became very apparent at a certain time of my life that I just needed to do it. And friends started asking me to do it. And that's really how my business formed. I moved to Greenwich 22 years ago from Los Angeles, where I was building my own houses there, decorating my own houses, and it just felt effortless. And then when I got to Connecticut, friends wanted some of that, and they'd ask me to help them, and boom, the business grew.
It was very cool because I was 10, I think, 10 or 11, when her office was in our house. And I would come home from school and see her and her bookkeeper in the office and just kind of walk by. And I always appreciated how beautiful our house was. I think my sisters and I always have. We're all very creative people in different fields. But seeing your work at home was such a cool thing to grow up with. And then with our office in downtown Greenwich for a long time, my little sister and I would go there after school. We'd tag along to site visits. It became very integral to our lives. And I would start interning, did a couple interns
At 16, right?
Did a couple internships for you guys, which was very fun because even though I was the boss's daughter at one point, I kind of just got to do all the grunt work, which is really important when you start in this business. And in college, I was sort of like, not so sure. I graduated, I got a job in marketing, I think. And that was July, and by September of that year, I finally came to my mom and I was like, why are we putting off the inevitable? Let's just start working together already. So now that has been almost 10 years.
It's incredible.
And it's been really great kind of working from the bottom of, being a project manager, working as a designer, and now us running the firm together has come so naturally. But it's been a great learning experience.
It's the best.
Yeah, it's been really fun.
I think what's been so great about Ally and I working together is that Ally brings not strictly like this bohemian vibe, but definitely something that is a little bit more flirty in a way that like really enhances what I'm already doing, what I was already doing. So the combination of that look, I think that's where we've hit our stride.
Definitely. It's really because obviously I've grown up and been surrounded by all of this beauty and my mom's style, and mine has slightly evolved from what yours is, but the basics are always there. And I think that when we really started to design together on projects is when our creativity really took off.
Which was during COVID.
Yes.
And we were like
stuck in an office alone, the two of us every day. We were crazy people, but it really created one of our most favorite projects. And it elevates every single project that we work on now together.
Welcome to the design studio. I feel incredibly lucky that I have this in my house. It was this perfect third floor space that I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I was thinking about transitioning offices. I really wanted to spend more time at home with our new puppy, Graham, who can't ever leave us alone and is always up here. It was a perfect space to just bring all of my fabrics, my fabric library. This beautiful window felt so, just inspiring, and adding more of our books and our beautiful pottery, and able to just really access everything that we use right here, but create it in
so
a
inspirational
home
up here.
environment. Felt so good to me. I'm up here early in the morning. I'm here late in the afternoon. It's such a good motivation to work when you're in a beautiful spot. And I think looking out, doesn't hurt that I'm looking out to this beautiful lighthouse, and we're on an island, so this whole room is just surrounded by water, and keeping all of our little things handy, keeping it tidy is interesting. These mood boards that we have up here inspire us, and these pictures are everything that we are thinking about. This is very summer inspired, but our brain is thinking this way all the time. Ina in the garden, fresh cut roses, beautiful china, wicker baskets. Some of our work is in here, inspirational images, Ralph Lauren, of course, and these boards are done by Abby Ward, and she's just a creative genius. So I feel very lucky that she has made these for our office. We have another one on the other side that I can show you. And keeping all the fabrics that, like I said, downstairs, hero fabrics, things that just make us really happy and that we go back to. Keeping all things organized in our clients' baskets. We always present with a basket. Once we've gotten the design direction, we go to the client's house, or they come here, and everyone is assigned a basket. And we start layering room by room. And so that's in the car when we're rushing over to meet them for a site visit, or it's sitting here when we're working, talking with vendors. Their basket's always accessible. I think the basket makes it seem kind of cozy. In the old days, it was like the big bag from the D&D, but we do baskets. Having all these work surfaces, very helpful. I like to keep this as clean as possible because I'll lay fabrics out. We'll have architects' plans here on the table. I'll meet with the architects here. We meet with builders. We have our clients that come in. We made this tablecloth from some namasame fabric and just some beautiful cotton trim that the doggy loves to get into, but keeping all of our things stationary, certain fabrics that we're working on, tile samples, all of these beautiful little things are just little touches that we love. This particular area is great for when clients come. We can sit down with a cup of tea, or if it's later in the afternoon, or we're talking about budgets, maybe a glass of wine. But this is just where we can flip through their lookbook. We can bring the fabrics over, sit down and, lay it all out for approvals. And it's also just a nice place when you're working to be able to sit down, like after an hour or so of trying to focus and design and just taking some time to mellow out, open up the doors, feel the ocean breeze.
So magical.
Just magical. So this room was a bonus and makes working at home feel like the biggest treat, honestly, ever.
And we've had these chairs, these two floral chairs, for a long time now. I think, when was the first time we used them? When we did Legends of La Cienega?
When we did the window for Gracie at Legends of La Cienega. And I had started a furniture line in 2016, which did not last long. It was a lot of work.
Still get questions about it though.
Yes, we do. And these
maybe one day we'll bring it back.
These chairs with the scalloped edge. We actually still make these for clients.
We make these for clients a
they
lot.
love them. And just having like all of the beautiful green velvet, but this is actually a sleeper sofa. So when I have my other children are home, they can stay up here and collecting different lampshades. And again, it's really just about mixing all of these patterns and mitering the stripes on here, finding these lampshades on Instagram, which is just so funny when they pop up and you purchase. More Lisa Fine, beautiful chintz. I think it's one of the prettiest florals around. And it picks up so many other elements. Dark navy, more aqua, teal. And this whole environment surrounded by the beadboard, I think just feels really great. It's a room that really feels like the decor that we do in the homes that we work on in New England. We are now in the garden. We love gardening. My husband's an incredible gardener, and keeping these hydrangeas by the front door is really special for us. We have collected these old planters. Mrs. McDougall, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, from London, they brought pieces over and they sold them just at random places, and I was able to find these planters, which I adore. So we keep these close to the house, and beautiful blue hydrangeas in them. This is something that my husband loves. He loves roses, so he gave me a rose tree for Mother's Day this year, a rose tree for Mother's Day last year, and they are French roses, and they smell beautiful. Unfortunately, we just got past the last bloom. And then we love to keep delphiniums in the garden, and I thought these were kind of fun. In these plastic-lined baskets. They're just great and add so much charm. My bike that I love. And some more greenery, rose trees. We love boxwood. Love, love, love boxwood. And of course, I think probably one of my favorite signs of summer is a geranium. I love the white geraniums. I have red geraniums in the living room. And that's just a fun way, a little seating area to have the deck just feel so good and inviting. This way we can sit outside and we can look out to the water, have a glass of wine at night. And then we come into the garden, which again is small, but we focused on walls of hydrangeas. So we kept it kind of clean. And climbing roses, that's a new dawn. And it's one of our favorites, along with iceberg roses. Those are shrub roses. This thing came back to life and has grown into just this amazing shrub. This is a boxwood as well. And then we have just more of the hydrangeas. Pink, blue. We have a bird bath that we got at Trade Secrets a couple years ago. It's very special and really pretty. And these are called Annabelle. This is a very special hydrangea, and they get about 6 feet tall. So they're gonna cover all of this probably by the end of summer, and they'll be big white floppy blossoms. They're wonderful. And this down here is an apple espalier, very, very important plant to us. Right now you can see the apples. They're darling little apples. By the fall, this will be filled. And then in the spring, it's just beautiful pink blossoms. Apple blossoms are beautiful. So that tree is very important to us. And everything is planted in these really wonderful English containers that my husband collects. And then we have more of the climbing roses. We have a beautiful French rose down at the end that I will probably continue to cut. This home equals my design aesthetic, is a way to put it, because coming from Los Angeles, things are fresh, things have the opportunity to get dressed up. There's not crazy architecture in homes there. There, lots of shiplap beadboard, French doors, gardens, indoor, outdoor lifestyles, and my aesthetic has always been an indoor, outdoor lifestyle. The gardens are a huge part of how I decorate a home. This house was such a perfect, fresh palette that the indoor, outdoor lifestyle, there's so many windows, it just all blends. So I think my design aesthetic growing up in Los Angeles with all of that fresh take on everything fits it really well.
Definitely, and I think all of the slip-covered furniture in the house, these sofas behind us, everywhere, there's just gorgeous, very light fabrics.
Baskets everywhere you look, and flowers, yeah. The word home means comfort. The word home means happiness and safety and all the things that you see in a movie that you leave there and you're thinking, oh, I just want to feel that way. I want that experience. And when I think of home, I want my home to give me those feelings on all those levels. Romantic, calm, peaceful, beautiful. And I think home is, for me, feels like a welcoming, open arms.
I think family too. Family is probably where my brain goes first. Comfortability and happiness, definitely.
Happiness.
Homeworthy, we loved having you here today.
But it's time to go. No, we really have had the greatest day, but we have dinner guests coming. And thank you again for coming to our home in Connecticut.
See you soon.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Max. I'm looking forward to showing you around my house, so come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Max Head. I'm a creative consultant and I'm based here in Northwest London. So I've lived here for now roughly 5 years, and it was a very long process finding this house. I knew exactly what I wanted. At the time it was post-lockdown or in the middle of lockdown, and there weren't that many houses like this available. And I had a very specific criteria for what I wanted, namely I needed enough wall space for the enormous Brazilian painting that I currently have in the wall. That painting has been in my family for, God, like 25 years, and it originally hung in the house I grew up in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And it had been living in storage for way too many years, and I'd always been obsessed with it, and my mum said she would give it to me if I found a house with enough wall space. So I basically went round this area of London with a tape measure, and every house I looked at, I would get the tape measure out and measure the walls, and I couldn't find one with quite enough space until I walked into this one, and straight away, without even needing the tape measure, I just knew that there's enough wall space, the rest of the house is going to be great. And my sister, who was with me at the time, said, okay, well, we probably should see the rest of the house before you put an offer in. And I said, absolutely don't need to. I know it's going to be great. It's got all I possibly need. And that's how I ended up here. So when I walked into this house, it had been the loving home of a family of 4. And in a house this size, family of 4, they needed to keep it pretty drip dry, I would say. So everything was white, everything was shiny. It was a very easy house to maintain a sort of level of cleanliness you need when you have a family of 4 living here. Renovate's probably too strong a word, but I completely needed to maxify this entire space. I hate white, I hate blank canvases, so I wanted to throw as much paint and as much colour on this space that I possibly could. However, I didn't quite have the budget to do the renovations that I wanted, so I had to decide between decorative or practical, and I definitely chose decorative. Seeing as it was the first house I'd ever kind of attempted to do up myself, I realised that I probably needed a little bit of help. So I drafted in one of my best friends, Benedict Foley, who's an antique steeler, fabric maker and interior decorator, to kind of hold my hand and bounce ideas off as I developed the project. And we got on, it was all going so well that we thought, okay, well, let's just collaborate properly. And we did this house up together, which was such a fun kind of adventure to embark on, and yeah, I'm very happy with the results. So here we are in what I rather grandly call my library. The only reason I call it that really is because this is where most of my books are contained. It is, and I'll try not to say this too much throughout the house tour, but I think this might be my favourite room in the house. It's definitely the room I spend the most time. And I love just throwing myself down on the sofa, pick out a book from the shelf, light a few candles, listen to some music, and just have a very kind of relaxing, wholesome time. Green was the #1 colour I wanted when I bought the house. It was the first colour I knew I wanted to have in the space. It was the room that was the easiest for me to put together because it already existed in my head. So it was just a simple case of transferring what was in my mind onto the walls, and it came together honestly within about like a month of me buying the house, which was really nice, and the rest of the house just had to catch up. When I bought this house, I knew that I wanted to have a lot of space to entertain. I love having friends around, I have a massive family, and it's important for me to be able to accommodate them, which is why throughout the space you'll see various little seating areas. I've got the chair here. Often everything is movable and I can slot in more seating area as and where I need it, but I knew that I needed to dominate the space with as much seating as possible. However, that can look visually very clunky. So when designing this room, Benedict and I thought long and hard about what should be the principal seating area, and we settled on this amazing green velvet sofa, which actually I had customized for the space, which they very kindly let me do, and it fits exactly into the corners of this room. And the reason why I chose to do it in a colour that matched the walls was that it would blend in quite seamlessly and not dominate the eye visually when you walk in. And I kind of allowed the cushions and fun bits of fabric to do the talking there. Also in this room, which I absolutely love, are these two they would have originally been footstools, but I'm using them as a little coffee table. They were in my grandmother's attic for longer than she or I would care to admit. And they were covered in a really horrible silk, like a kind of silk brocade, and it was really ghastly and had kind of faded in horrible areas. And I originally bought this fabric here to cover them up in, which would look amazing. But as I ripped the silk brocade off, I found this amazing Victoria needlepoint underneath. And they'd been covered and protected by the horrible silk brocade, and I just loved it so much I thought they should stay the way they are. They were originally in my grandmother's house, which was called Hartwell House, which is now an amazing hotel and spa, but was her family home. And I've got photographs somewhere in the house of them in their original location, which was a much, much grander room than this. So I feel a bit sorry for them that they've been downgraded, but they're still nevertheless much, much loved. Lighting in a space like this is really important. It's not a room that's filled with that much natural light, not helped by my amazing blind, but more important that it looked pretty than it was served any sort of practical function. So lighting was really important, which is why I have an array of different lamps at different eye level throughout this room, so that at different times of day I can control the lighting to a way that suits. If I've got friends, I'll have less. If I'm reading or working in here, then I'll obviously have more light. The fireplace here is original. I was quite lucky to actually find a house that this hadn't been ripped out in the sort of 80s and 90s. People tended to rip out Victorian fireplaces like this, and you can find them on eBay for like 60 quid. But I'm so glad that the owners of this house didn't decide to do that, because I love the original tiling, and I think it's very, very very pretty. And on the mantle I have my sort of array of nonsense, which I've collected over the years, presided over by this incredible mirror, which was my 30th birthday present from my mother, which I absolutely love, and is often the thing that I say, if the house was on fire, it would be between this and the painting in the hallway that I would save first, after the cats and potentially the partner, depending on how well we're getting on at the time. I also love these brackets up here, which were designed by Benedict Foley, who helped me with the house. He spent years curating the perfect bracket, and I think he achieved that with these two, which we painted out to match the wall and adorned with little Staffordshire dogs, which I think every home should have. I love this space. It's incredibly calming despite being incredibly busy, and yeah, it brings me a lot of joy. When it came to designing this space, I knew that I wanted it to have a very kind of like snug, traditional library-like feel to it. And this room originally had a door coming in, which I just felt like having too many entrances would ruin that kind of cozy, snug-like feel that I wanted. But rather than seal it up, I just thought I'd make a feature out of it, and add some decorative paintings using what was left in the house. So this bottom one was a leftover frame from another project that didn't quite work out. And using the scraps from the blind, we created this kind of pin board style print holder and the additional bow that runs up behind my Christmas present this year from my boyfriend Edo, which is this antique pair of kittens playing with what looks like pills, but I'm assured isn't. And I just love the playfulness of it, and I love the contrast between the kind of bow and the imagery, and I just think it really makes this whole part of the room feel very put together and considered, when it could have just easily become a relegated corner of the room where nothing was actually done. I worked in fashion before working in sort of more interiors, which is what I do now. Coming from a fashion background, I had a very strong sense of like temporary visual identity, so I knew exactly how to set something up for a shoot. I knew exactly how to create a world that only existed in a moment. I knew that in order to make this house work, I needed to take that knowledge and make it more concrete, because unlike fashion, interior design definitely should not follow trends and shouldn't be something that every season you feel the need to update. That's not how I personally think interiors should work. They are supposed to last a very, very, very long time. So I had to kind of take what I knew from fashion and blend it with what I was learning from interiors, and that's kind of how I approached this space, was this idea that everything I put in, I would have to like, not just next week, not just next month, but 10 years from now, maybe even 20 years from now. I wanted a sense of permanence, which is why, although when looking at this house, it can seem quite crazy and colourful and somewhat mad, actually the thought process behind a lot of the fabrics and a lot of the colours and a lot of the pieces of furniture are rooted in very traditional interior design techniques. So whilst they might seem mad, your eye naturally recognises them from historic projects you might have seen before. So that's how I kind of wanted to blend the fun, sort of fantastical elements of my personality with kind of more traditional interior design. So now, after this room, I'll take you through into the drawing room. So this is, I guess, the drawing room, or the drinks room, as we often call it. These terraced houses in London always have this slightly awkward through room, and no one really knows what to do with them. The people who lived here before actually had a standing desk in an aquarium above here, which was a very, very random use of space. But I knew that I wanted to maximize this house to the best of my ability and make use of every single inch that I possibly could. And I knew that if I didn't put enough thought into this space, it would just become that abandoned walkway where things get dumped and no one actually uses. So I turned it into what every young man should have, a sort of amazing drinks room dominated by this 18th century table, which was one of the first things I bought for the house, which was very stupid and very dangerous, as I had it delivered whilst they were still painting. And I walked in once and the whole tabletop was covered in Farrow paint, and I thought, oh my God, like, probably not my smartest idea in the world, but it survived and it thrived, and here it is in all its gorgeousness, topped with all of my favorite drinks. It's a great little space here as well because you've got these sort of separate seating areas, so you can sit together but apart. It's less of a sort of intimate setting than the library. I can sit here and someone can sit there and we can be together but not necessarily having to interact with each other, which is quite a rarity for a house of this scale. Again, on the shelves, things I've collected over the years, all of which I absolutely love. Some of them came from grandparents' house, others are sort of trinkets I've picked up over the years, and looking at them every morning kind of does bring me huge amounts of joy. I have also got on this wall some of my favourite pieces of art in the house. I sadly couldn't afford the original Thomas Chatterton, which is currently in the National Portrait Gallery. So I had this aluminium tin printed version instead, which I absolutely love. Followed by this portrait of me, which was taken by one of my best friends, Thurston Redding, the fashion photographer, for my 25th birthday. And it's got to the point now where often people come in and go, "Who is that?" And I'm like, God, time's moved on that fast. But it is, in fact, me. And then obviously these bits over here, I really love the Infanta, which was a birthday present from a friend years and years ago. And above it is a bow, which if you use your eagle eyes, you will spot it's the same fabric from the blind. And it was left over from that. And I cut it up and turned it into a bow and added it on top of the Infanta, which is like a nice little touch, I think. And again, a nod to a much more traditional style of interior design and interior decorating than I guess people expect when they come to a house like this. I am a big fan of Venice. It's a big source of inspiration for me. So you will see throughout the house little nibbles and knickknacks that I picked out from there, including this incredible candelabra, which I carried back in my hand like it's sacrificing many other things to the hold in order to save this. I love it. It sits here and is almost too delicate and precious to get used, and I never actually seem to have 6 candles lying around, but it does a wonderful job of guarding this seat, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I have, yes, all my other sort of glassware here, which gets used more than you would think, which is great. So as I mentioned, I have a lot of sort of trinkets and knickknacks from Venice around here. Venice informed actually the colour of the ceiling in this room as well. I saw an incredible palazzo in Venice which had a sky blue ceiling, and I was like, well, that's it, that's what I want. And Benedict and I had a very long conversation where he went, well, Max, the problem is that probably worked wonderfully in a palazzo in Venice. Not sure quite how that's going to translate to a cottage in northwest London, but okay, and we gave it a go, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. As I said about the green room, that was the fastest room we put together. It was ready in about a month. This room actually took the longest because I just couldn't decide on the wall colour in here. Originally I wanted pink, which was a very kind of, I think, quite seen quite a lot, this combination of green and pink, and it had really had its moment a few years ago. So I was correctly advised that maybe pink might age quite fast. But I knew I wanted something light and funky. Funky is terribly aging, but fine. So I wanted something fun and fabulous in here, and we put probably 20 samples on this wall to the point where it literally looked like a patchwork quilt by the end. And the builders were going, come on, we got to decide. And eventually I kind of settled on this colour, which is bisque, which is actually a lobster bisque. And what I love about it is it changes colour throughout the day. It's kind of sometimes really rich, sometimes it's much softer. And it's quite a unique colour. It's an orangey red, and you could spend hours debating about what colour it actually is. But I think it packs a real visual punch, which when you're enjoying a cocktail or sitting reading a book or whatever you're doing is very visually kind of invigorating and very visually pleasing. So this house is Victorian, and a lot of the features are actually still original Victorian, which is great, and I was very lucky to inherit that. The extension at the back wasn't, and I needed to, and the extension had been done by the previous owners, and they'd done the floor in a kind of very modern laminate, like a kind of plastic laminate, which is a cheaper way of doing reproduction wooden flooring. It for me, it just didn't work. And so I had that flooring ripped up and replaced with original Victorian flooring, which I purchased from a hotel that was being demolished in Manchester. And once it was installed, it just didn't match the floor in here at all, which had been kind of whitewashed and rubbed down. And initially I wanted to go darker. It's much more traditional to have a kind of stained wooden floor. And then we decided that with the color palette we'd chosen, in order to really make the other colors sing and lift the house, it would be nice to have a lighter colored floor. I didn't want white, definitely not. So we settled on this kind of dove grey, which I think does exactly the job of reflecting light back off the floor onto the walls and allowing the paint on the walls to really sing. And in a house that is not blessed with huge amounts of natural light, any tricks that we can do to bounce light up and onto the walls and onto people's faces and onto the fabrics and artworks that we chose, you know, those were all tips and techniques that we kind of had to do, and I think have worked really well. It does mean there's a lot more mopping to be done than I would potentially like, but I think the plus sides of it outweigh the negatives, definitely. I started as a fashion blogger way back in honestly 1745. It was so long ago. I left university, I started a fashion blog with my best friend at the time. It was kind of that dawn of the blogger and dawn of the influencer, and no one had really ever seen anything quite like it, and we had absolutely no idea what we were doing, but we had so much fun doing it. I did that for about 5 years, as well as doing modeling, so it was kind of very in front of the camera work. And then about midway through my 20s, I kind of decided that I wanted to step behind the camera and explore the more creative side of my personality. So I did art direction and fashion styling, and I was head of art direction for a menswear brand based here in London called Basic Rights, which was great fun, and I really got to create worlds for my customer, which I really, really enjoyed doing. I then did sort of freelance art direction and styling work for other brands based predominantly here in London, whilst also building up my own social media following and creating content for them, which now that gets called content creation. At the time, it was just called straight up influencing. And I kind of balanced those two together. And then COVID came, and obviously the world stopped. And in that stopping, I kind of looked around and thought, I've been doing fashion for the best part, over 10 years. I wanted to explore something else. And this house was the perfect opportunity for me to explore interior design and the elements of that I really enjoyed. And I really enjoyed the styling aspect of taking a space and kind of tarting it up, adding things, subtracting things, making it look great. And it was a very natural segue from sort of fashion shoots to interior shoots. And then naturally with that, my kind of social media shifted away from fashion into interiors, and now here we are. So here we have the kitchen, the heart of the home. I was faced with a bit of a choice when I moved in about this kitchen. It was done as an extension. With all due respect to the previous owners, it wasn't done particularly well. It was kind of, all the electrics were skewed and the piping was skewed. And really, what I should have done is rip the whole thing out. But as I mentioned earlier, I was kind of faced with the choice between decoration and practicality, and I definitely chose decoration. So in order to kind of tart this place up as much as I possibly could and make it functional, I had to do a bit of plumbing work, a little bit of electrics, but I couldn't really rip the whole thing out. Well, this is technically a fitted kitchen, and in order to unfit it, I'd have had to rip all these cupboards out, which I just didn't really have the kind of budget left to do. But I didn't really want to leave it as is, because like all fitted kitchens like this, they'd left this kind of huge chunk above the cabinets, which is completely random. And as someone put it once when they came around, the only thing that you could ever store up there is dust. So rather than kind of fill it up, I decided to add this kind of very fun crenellation detail around the kitchen. I'm a big lover of fantasy and fancy fiction and Lord of the Rings and medieval history and all that type of thing. So Benedict and I sat here one day and thought we could either add scallops around the top or something along that line, or we can go full medieval castle. And we went full medieval castle, which the builders thought we were completely insane for doing. But I love the effect, and each bit is hand cut by the long-suffering Tony. and pinned up there. And I love the effect. It really makes me smile, and it's fun. Also, a bit of a top tip for people doing up their house in the same way as me, be it that is and by that I mean kind of not wanting to or having the means to rip everything out and start again. You can always falsify things, and you can always add and take away in order to make the space look unique or slightly more thought through than potentially it is. So another thing we did in this kitchen, for example, is we replaced all the cupboard knobs with these really large, oversized porcelain, sort of Alice in Wonderland style cupboard knobs, which are kind of fab and a bit ridiculous, but they work and they add a kind of sort of country cottage element to this kitchen, which I really enjoy. As you can probably tell, I loathe anything practical or anything that serves too much of an actual function. So I had to have things like the dishwasher hidden. So I walked into the Sybil Colfax showroom and I fell in love with Kettle and Pots, which is what this fabric is. I believe it's called that, fairly certain. And they only had a few meters of it left, which was just the amount that I needed in order to make these little kitchen curtains, which cover the horror of the dishwasher. Is somewhat impractical, but deeply fabulous and therefore very important. And again, with the sort of playing around with scale, and I've got these sort of mini coffee cups here, which are espresso cups, and then a very, very large bread basket. And all this does is distract from the fact that this kitchen isn't quite how I would have designed it, but it's completely usable and serves me very well on a day-to-day basis as I kind of burn my toast and like destroy whatever I'm trying to attempt to cook on the hob. So this is more the dining area, again rather grandly called. It's basically just the reverse of the kitchen, but where we have all of our meals and where I love to entertain all of our friends. And it's a really great space. As you can tell, it's very well lit, but as you can see, it's been built under this skylight, which provides the most incredible natural light, and it's kind of perfect to sit and work and enjoy a lovely home cooked meal, not by me because I'm a terrible cook. But I wanted to make this kitchen kind of a mixture of a country cottage and also a kind of evening on the Mediterranean. The choice of colour in here was really important because I wanted it to interact with the light and kind of be and work at different times of year and different times of day. So eventually we settled on something called Fake Tan, real name, by Farnball from their archive collection, which is a really, really great colour, and it's probably the colour that I get asked about the most in the house because it looks so different in every picture. Sometimes it's gold, sometimes it's sort of more of a pink, sometimes it's more of an umber. It's just a very warming colour. So that's the colour choice in here. I also added these very simple MDF panels to the wall to create a kind of sense of warmth and again, add to that kind of country cottage feeling. It was a really, really cheap and efficient way of just making the space feel a bit cozier. It's kind of, the technical term is tongue and groove, but it's actually just cheap MDF that we whacked up there, and it's literally held together with, I think, glue and Pritt stick. So it's kind of fab, and it does a job, and I think it creates a very nice atmosphere in this room. Like everything in this house, I kind of played around with scale. Why have one tiny, very sort of perfectly arranged something when you can have an enormous bush like here? I think that kind of is a fun way of keeping it visually interesting in the space by playing with scale and keeping people guessing. The artwork in here is very sentimental to me as well. It's stuff that I've collected throughout the years, and some of it's actually done by friends. So it's really important, and it's, I come down in the morning, I make my coffee in the kitchen, I look across at my artwork, and I feel very kind of lucky to live in this space, and I really enjoy everything about this room. As I mentioned earlier, it was always incredibly important to me that I had a space that I could entertain as often as I kind of wanted. And I knew when it came to a dining room table, I knew I needed one that served that purpose. But I didn't want anything too kind of heavy and old school. I think it would, I kind of felt at the time that it would distract from a lot of the more playful elements of the house. And so I settled on this table, which I found on Etsy, which has got all the farmhouse character of a traditional table, but with that slightly tapered legs, which just makes the whole thing feel a bit lighter and doesn't dominate the space as much visually as a sort of traditional stonking great farmhouse table would. Around the table, I've got these amazing little garden chairs, which are really fun. They're meant to be outside, but I thought they were far too pretty to live and rust outside. So they sit around the table. I will admit that by sort of hour 4 of a very long lunch, they become a little bit uncomfortable, but they're so pretty, so who cares? They stay. Above the table, I have these lights. They were an addition. I got them from somewhere called the Workshop Below, which is a family-run shop up north. And they are wired to hang They're wired to hang so that they can be dropped and heightened whenever I want. So if I want a sort of intimate, moody setting, I can lower them. And when I want a slightly lighter, brighter meal, I can lift them up. So they're actually quite practical, which is not words I often use when it comes to describing this house. Over here, we have this kind of cork board, which is quite a funny story. Originally, this was a spice rack, and they had sort of hundreds of little shelves going down here, which were full of spices, but I'm such a klutz and I'm constantly waving my hands around and walking around, and I knew that if I used it for what it was meant for, I would end up with a floor full of paprika every 5 minutes. So we took all that out and added these cork boards behind, which is now a very nice way of just pinning up letters and photos that I get sent and little trinkets. And as you can see, I've got sort of Polaroids and notes from friends, and it's just a very nice place to store mementos. And as I'm sitting and having my breakfast in the morning, I can look at this collection of lovely things that I've managed to pull together over the years. So through here we have what we call the yellow room, which is a really fun and kind of fabulous yellow colour, which is again painted in a very, very high gloss, because it's a tiny space and I wanted a colour that would reflect and a finish that would reflect as much light as possible and bounce as much light across throughout the room as possible. This is Babouche by Farrow & Ball, which is a really fun and amazing colour. I use this room predominantly as a kind of kitchen pantry, and I have this kitchen dresser here, which I picked up for next to nothing in an auction. I think it cost me £30. It's actually an incredibly useful piece of furniture. It's got great storage in it, and it's where I hang all my mugs, and in the morning I make toast and I can make tea and coffee in here. And it's a really sort of fab little bit of furniture which I really enjoy. We also have frankincense in this room, which is the little banquette on the left. So frankincense was born because I knew I wanted a little seating area that would fit in this room. And after spending hours and hours and hours researching and looking for little day beds and little sofas, I finally decided that actually it was probably going to be easier just to have something made. But I didn't want to spend a fortune, and I did want it to pack a very strong visual impact. So what we settled on was just 2 planks of wood placed directly into that space and layered in as much chintz and as much different fabric as we could possibly find. I went on eBay and found lots of fabulous different types of chintz from Colfax and Fowler and Laura Ashley, and bought as much of it as I could and turned it into what we now lovingly call frankincense. It's a really fun and playful way of creating a seating area in such a small space like this. Behind me we also have these curtains, which are fab and were actually put up by my friend's dad. It was the first bit of DIY we did in the house, and we were all completely useless and had to do the age-old thing of calling in someone's dad to come and help us. But they're a vintage fabric that were in a friend's house before, and I really love them. They're very kind of playful and work perfectly as a kind of garden entrance to the garden, secret garden curtains, which I really love. So if I had to give you my #1 design tip, I actually just gave it to a client the other day, is be brave. Just be brave. It's really, really scary when you've bought a house or you've signed a lease on a space to look around and go, I'm going to change this whole thing, because you've already spent so much money. Do you really want to spend any more? And the truth is, if you're brave, you end up just loving it. If you take a risk, and if you take a risk with the right person, so if you trust the person you're collaborating with, you're going to end up with something fantastic. And the worst comes to worst, if you don't like it, you can always paint it back. With interiors, there's short of listen, if you're knocking through, if you decide to completely renovate, please work with an architect. But if you're working with someone like me or some an interior decorator or an interior stylist, if you hate what we've decided to do, you can always paint it back. I also think that when doing up a space, the #1 thing that I always ask people to think about is what they're using that space for. Because there's no point doing up a room based on what you think you might use it for, and then suddenly it's something completely different. And that might sound silly, but it really does require quite a lot of thought as to how you're going to navigate your house and how you're going to navigate the space that you live. And once you've settled on that, the ideas will come much more naturally and you'll end up with a much better project. Here we are in the hallway of the house, which is quite an enclosed, tight space, but is one of the most important parts of the house because it's the reason why I bought it. I needed somewhere for this painting that I have here on my left, which is been in my family for over 25 years. It was in our house in Brazil, which is where I grew up, and it sat in storage in the UK for way too long. And my mum said that if I found somewhere to hang this painting, she would give it to me. So I went house hunting, predominantly as a gallery space for this. It was painted for Ayrton Senna, the racing car driver, but it was sadly too big for the house that he had in mind for it. So my parents managed to snap it up at an absolute steal, and it brings me so much joy. And as you can imagine, coming in from grey, rainy London and being greeted by the Brazilian tropics is a pretty nice thing to come home to. And it's very, very special. And the colours in this definitely informed my love of colour and my interest in colour combinations and living with a lot of colour. So it's a very important piece to me, and it lives in constant danger from being bashed into, but we can't get too precious about it. Speaking of Brazil, the kind of green that we have here on all the woodwork and going up the stairs behind me was inspired by a colour that they often use in beach houses in Bahia, which is this kind of light greenish blue. It's called Folly Green by Farnball. And this is Naples, the resident British shorthair, who will be following us around the tour, I'm sure. Also in this hallway is this kind of very white gloss, which was often sometimes people walk in and go, God, it's so shiny in here. But the reason behind the choice of gloss is because not only is it very reminiscent of Brazil, they often have very glossy walls in their kitchens and in their entrance halls in Brazil, but also it's a harder wearing paint. So for an enclosed hallway like this, as I kind of permanently bash into it, I'm less likely to take chips out of the wall because it's got this sort of high gloss finish. And also it helps bounce light from the space, making the hallway feel bigger than it actually is, which is definitely the aim of most London houses, always try and falsify the size and the scale. So also in this hallway we have what I call my door hats, which I have here and above the entrance to the living room. They were dreamed up by Benedict Foley, who's my partner in crime and long-suffering collaborator when it comes to all things interior design. We thought this door needed a little bit of tarting up, so we whacked a hat on. The whole thought process behind this was inspired by what the Georgians did a lot of in their houses. Predominantly they're sort of grander country houses, so a bit silly having it in an English little cottage. But in Georgian interior design and interior styling, they would often add massive pediments to their door frames in order to tart them up a bit, and we decided to do something similar. And I love the effect. I think it's kind of silly and fabulous, which is kind of my MO really. I also love these light switches, which you'll see throughout the house. I did very little practical work to this house when I moved in. I had the choice to either roll the thing in glitter or kind of really go into the woodwork and update the electrics and do all the boring things that I absolutely did not want to do. But one thing I decided was a complete necessity was these completely fabulous light switches, which I really love. And they're probably one of the only things I actually did structurally to the house when I bought it. The rest is just smoke and mirrors. So originally when I moved into this house, I was always going to be moving in with a friend, and I knew that I was far too young to possibly live alone, so I wanted to have friends living with me for as long as possible. And I thought, in order to have friends living here, I definitely needed 2 bathrooms. So that was another prerequisite for my purchase, was to have wall space for that piece of art, and then also 2 loos. And so here we have a very cute little downstairs loo under the stairs. But before we get there, I wanted to show you these other pieces of art that I've collected over the years. I love this wall sconce. I think it's really fun and fabulous. It goes beautifully with this Brazilian Brazilian painting called The Kiss, which I also inherited from my mother and father. And I think the colours just really brighten up this space, and they're, again, like the palm trees in the hallway, a very invigorating thing to walk into. So yeah, this is the little downstairs loo, and on it I have a Beata Human door handle, which I love. It's a ribbon design, and I think it's really fab and very elegant and chic, and it's kind of the perfect little door handle for this downstairs loo. Painting of me and my siblings as a child in front of the now very much mentioned painting. I'll let you guess which one's me, but yeah, it's very cute in here. Oh, before we go upstairs to the bedrooms, I wanted to point out this carpet, which is obviously a bit of a highlight in the house. Dale Chihuly for the Rug Company, which was a really special collaboration. Dale Chihuly is one of my favourite artists of all time. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's great. He works with glass, and he's a really, really fantastic, inspiring artist. He did a collaboration with the Rug Company, and I worked very closely with the team to come up with a pattern and a fit that would allow me to use it as a stair runner and a fitted carpet upstairs. It was the first time the Rug Company had used this design as a stair runner, so it was a bit of a first for all of us, but I'm thrilled with how it worked out, and the colours in it weren't custom for the house, which a lot of people think they were. It just so happened that they fit exactly the scheme that I was after. Again, it is not the most practical carpet of all time. I have 2 cats and lots of people walking in and out of the house, and it's not the world's most user-friendly of carpets, but I don't care. It's really stood the test of time, and nothing a hoover and a mop can't, clear up after. But yeah, come on upstairs. So here we are on the landing upstairs, in front of my theatrical curtain here, which again looks way more thought through and glamorous than it actually is. It's just an end of roll bit of chintz that we sourced from a closing down factory in Norfolk. And Benedict and I were sort of very inelegantly dangling off seats and ladders with staple guns and blue tack to get it to sit up like that. But I really love the theatrical effect it provides. It was a very, very inexpensive kind of last minute decision in addition to the house, but it brings me so much joy. I just think it adds a sort of completely almost kind of, theatrical, I guess is the best word, element to the sleeping quarters. It's also a great backdrop for this wall of paintings and objets, I rather grandly can say, that I've collected over the years. Next to this incredible Venetian mirror, which I gave to my partner for Christmas, but loved so much, decided it had to actually stay under my roof rather than heading to his. And I initially sourced through a Nicky Haslam auction, which is kind of fab. Next to this, I have some of my old relatives. My favourite being Sir William Lee, who's here, who was the first British politician to fight for women's rights in the House of Commons. So he is a very important man and someone I'm very proud to call a relative of mine. So he hangs here, pride of place, next to Thomas Eyre, who was another relative with a slightly less interesting life, but don't tell him I said that. Come through here. So this is my bedroom, which again is a kind of riot of colour and texture and fabric, but again underpinned by very traditional interior design techniques. There's got the bed canopy, the headboard, the cover, the rug. It's all very, very traditional, old school ways of decorating. I think Benedict put it very wisely once when he said that, if you were to shoot this room in black and white, it would just look like any other traditional English country house. But it's the colour and the kind of almost clashing elements of the textures that create the kind of modern feel to it, or the more contemporary feel to it, which I think is quite an interesting way of looking at interior design. It's like, if this room was in black and white, would it feel very traditional? And I think the answer in this room is definitely yes. And actually that carries through for the rest of the house. If you shoot it in black and white and remove the colour, it just feels like a very traditional country house, which is definitely the kind of look that I was going for. So I was kind of thrilled with that analysis. This room, I initially wanted red and white stripes, but my sister very sagely said, imagine the hangovers, waking up to glaring red stripes might be a little bit much. So I settled on this orange and cream. Orange is famously the only colour that the principal character from Against Nature can stomach. He is an ailing French aristocrat who's seen too much of the world, and he maintains that orange is the calmest colour for the human eye. And I looked it up, and it is backed by medical science. So that's the reason why we've got orange in here, and I can confirm that it's a very, very pleasant and calming room to wake up to. Less calming when you keep the door open and allow the two rambunctious cats to come charging in, but that is not the room's fault. That's very much me being a codependent cat parent. I think for me the star of the show is the canopy. I really love this shell, which is one of the only things we actually had imported from a different country when doing up the house. I was trying to be as sustainable and thoughtful with my purchases when I was doing up the house. I really tried to focus on secondhand items, antiques, or things that I could find locally and didn't have to spend a huge amount of A, money, and B, a sort of environmental stress importing into the house. But this shell was just too perfect not to have, so it did come from Italy, but I am proud that it's the only thing that came from overseas. It was hand painted by yours truly to match the woodwork and the headboard here, and it's a kind of perfect crown. And I live every day hoping and praying that it doesn't fall down in the middle of the night and knock me unconscious, because it weighs a ton. But I am assured by the long-suffering Tony that it has been appropriately fastened. The canopy here is a very simple design. It was already so kind of flamboyant and fabulous in here that we decided that anything more than this might become a little bit too Disney princess for my liking. So it's just a simple bed canopy and a simple bed curtain tied back by these lovely antique holdback. The headboard was an eBay find, and it cost me the grand total of £12. Which was painted actually with a shell design, which I'll show you here, by my great friend Queenie Ingrams, and it was painted to match the shell above there, and it was just a great lesson in how you can find something very affordable and give it a bit of love and create something new and something special. So I do love this bedroom. I think it's great. You know, on the shelves beside the bed, I've got, again, an array of different objects and things that mean a lot to me, childhood images and shoes, all very, very important. The chandelier was quite a divisive decision. It was a gift from a friend of mine who was moving house, and she decided she didn't want it anymore. And I just thought, well, it's too good to go to waste. But the ceilings in this room aren't really quite high enough for a chandelier of this size, so it does get knocked quite a lot. But again, it's so fab and it's so theatrical, and I really, really love having a chandelier in my room, less so when I actually turn it on and I get spotlighted into oblivion. But it is very beautiful and it makes me very happy, so it stays. Before I bought this house, I'd never really thought about curtains before, if I'm completely honest. They were always something that I knew they existed and I knew what they did, but I never really thought about the kind of transformative power of a good pair of curtains. And it's something that I always say to friends and clients now, that it's well worth investing in something quite special and spectacular, because curtains are for life. And even if I was to sell this house, you know, I can take the curtains with me. I love these. These are very traditional, a very traditional design done in Sybil Colfax squiggle in aqua, which is a great fabric. It's really contemporary but also rooted in the traditional, which is something that is really important to me and something that I really love. And I think it just adds like a warmth and another layer to this room that is very special. So originally, when I bought the house, this room had fitted cupboards, which they took with them, which I was rather shocked about, but actually in hindsight thrilled about, because it allowed me to create this kind of playful masterpiece. The wardrobe, rather than have another fitted wardrobe put in, which would have maybe been a slightly sensible but maybe a bit boring option, Benedict and I found this wardrobe on eBay, on an auction house, sorry, and we completely forgot to touch base with each other in the morning of the auction, and we ended up bidding against each other rather annoyingly. But I won, and for the princely sum of £40, I took home this wardrobe. It was originally a horrible, horrible, horrible shade of white. And so I got my paintbrush out, got the wallpaper scraps that were left over from the room, and painted and wallpapered this myself. It's a really kind of great shape, and it stores all my clothes beautifully, and I really like the fact that I did it myself. What do I love most about my home? Well, I would say I live in London, which, true to its age-old reputation, is often pretty grey and miserable. And when I open the front door to my house, I'm instantly transported by kind of an awash of colours and fabrics and textures, and I'm kind of transported out of the sort of grey, mundane nature of everyday London life into this kind of fantasy world that I created. And Benedict and I worked very closely to pick apart my personality and pick apart my interests and make sure that each part of that was reflected somehow in the house. So there's elements of my childhood in Brazil, there's elements of my summers that I always spend in France, there's references to all my favourite books and films throughout the house, my favourite eras of history, all my books and sort of things I've collected throughout the years are all very carefully and prominently displayed throughout the house. So when I come home, I feel like I'm coming home to myself, which is a very comforting feeling and something that I think everyone should aspire to within their spaces. And if you can come back to a space that screams you back at you, you're naturally going to feel like you're in a safe space and somewhere that you want to relax and enjoy yourself and kind of take the weight of the world off your shoulders. Here we have my dressing room slash office. It was originally my housemate room, and I had 3 friends living here over the course of 4 years, and this was their bedroom. And then after they left me eventually, I kept it as a spare room. And I realized very quickly that a spare room in a house like this was a complete waste of space. I probably had 2 guests in a whole year, and increasingly I would just dump things in here, bits of furniture that I didn't know where to put, bags of clothes, dirty laundry, dry cleaning. Like, it would all just end up, suitcases, some unpacked, some packed, all end up kind of left here for days and weeks, months on end. And I just realized that it was such a waste of space and I could do something kind of special in here. I work from home, so it was important to me that the room served as somewhere that I could work. And also, you know, with my partner spending more time here, I have 2 cats, I kind of needed a space that I could retreat to and shut the door and kind of focus on myself. We also needed somewhere that I could store our rapidly expanding wardrobe. So it needed to serve as a kind of dressing room as well. So the dressing room cum office was born. Obviously, it's dominated by this incredible seating area, which is a sofa canopy. The sofa canopy was designed by Benedict and I. It's completely over the top and fabulous, and I couldn't be happier with the result. We used Nuttall Temple fabric, which I just think is such a great blend of, as I mentioned in my bedroom, contemporary and traditional. It feels very current, but is also an incredibly like heritage design. And the quality is fantastic. It's all hand printed in the UK, which just makes for like a really special product, which I know I'll treasure forever, which is something that is, well, I say something, it's the first thing I look for when I'm purchasing something new for the house now is, will I love this forever? And I know that I certainly will with this. The sofa underneath, a bit like the sofa downstairs, I knew that I wanted the seating area not to completely dominate the space. So I worked really closely with Abby and Katie from Bora and White, which is a New Hampshire, well, not New Hampshire, it's just Hampshire, Hampshire-based design duo who are amazing and wonderful, and they make something as often stressful as buying a sofa seem very, very easy, and they make the whole process seamless. So I worked with them and I custom designed this with them to fit this space, and it's got a little additional futon here which can attach to the end of the sofa and turns it into a single bed. So if I do have a guest, wanted or unwanted, stay the night, they can always sleep in here, which is very helpful. I love the circular cushions as well. It's not something you see too often anymore. And I think they just add another like very fun, playful element to the room. I played with the idea of having some fitted wardrobes installed here, but I realised very quickly that actually I could have the same effect by just painting out the alcoves and adding rails. So that's what I did. It was a much more cost and time effective way of achieving the result that I wanted. Hand painted chest of drawers by yours truly again, using leftover paint from my bedroom. And I just think that the gloss element of it again bounces light around the room and makes it really fun. When it came to my seating area, I knew that I needed something that carried a bit of weight, because this fabulous thing behind me is incredibly flamboyant, as is the Venetian mirror, which was a gift from a friend, incredibly generous gift from a friend, I should add. And it's beautiful and perfect, and I love it so much. But again, it's very light and fluffy and airy like the bed canopy. So I needed something to add a bit of weight to the room, which is why I settled on this Georgian writing bureau. It's quite unique, this, in the way that it doesn't have the sloped front, which a lot of them do, because this would have originally had a whole nother section going on top. So they're quite hard to find. So I spent months trying to find one that worked. And eventually I bought one through my cousin Ben, who is a furniture restorer. He found one for me, and it needed a bit of love, but a lot of love it got. And now it sits here and I absolutely love it. And I sit here typing away furiously and being very studious for many, many, many long hours. The lampshade here is from Pendragon Hall, which is one of their classic designs, which I love. And again, it's kind of contemporary whilst also being very traditional, and it sits above this Victorian bell jar lamp, which I sourced through Adam Bentley, which I absolutely love. The wallpaper here mimics my bedroom, but it isn't the exact copy. So I wanted the two rooms to be tied together, but it's done in a completely different colorway. The only thing I also decided to do differently in this room, which was a mistake I made in my bedroom, is I didn't add in some beading at the top of wallpaper. And I learned subsequently that I prefer it visually when wallpaper hits something. And so I installed this very, very, very rudimentary cornicing, which is just actually beading from, I think, Wix. I think it costs about £1 a meter or something. But it's glued up on the ceiling, and I think it just adds a bit of visual interest. So eventually I probably will do the same thing in my bedroom. I just got to find the time. Another thing that I particularly love about this bedroom is my papier-mâché Victorian chair, which is gorgeous, and it has its little Nuttall Temple seat cushion here. I won this at auction the other day. It's purely impractical because you shouldn't really sit on it, but I think that papier-mâché Victorian design is so stunning, so I just simply had to have it. So another thing that I really cherish in this room is this fan, which was a gift from my grandmother. It was from Hartwell House, which was her family home, which is where the seats downstairs came from. And it's a beautiful hand-painted fan, which she had ever since she was a little girl. And I found a fan frame for it to sit in, and it now lives quite happily above my door, and it makes me smile every time I walk past it. And because it was a gift from my grandmother, I really cherish it, and it holds a very special place in my heart. This is the bathroom. Again, it's one of those rooms that eventually I probably will make some more dramatic changes to this room, but at the time, I just decided it was perfectly usable as is, and I decided to just tart things up rather than rip it out and start again. I settled on a kind of vibe than the rest of the house because I like this idea of quite a cozy, intimate bathroom space. Lots of the things in here have been pillaged from previous houses, or this hung in my brother's room, childhood bedroom, for example. So it was a real case of what I had left went up in the bathroom. I wanted to do something quite dramatic around the window, not only because I wanted to, but also it hides some of my neighbours and provides a bit of more privacy. So this is a very kind of trad design pelmet, but carved out of MDF by my cousin's husband. And then draped on the side is actually not real curtains. They are just lovely bits of fabric I've pinned up in the window frame to kind of create the illusion of curtains. But I would never draw them, so I didn't really need to have them made. But they provide the kind of softening of the window frame that a curtain traditionally would. Behind me I have some decorative plates, which I wouldn't zoom in too closely if I were you, because suddenly it might become a bit PG-18. And then a metal print of Caravaggio's Narcissus, which I thought was quite relevant for a bathroom. And again, shame that the real one was slightly out of my budget. And so I've had to make do with this knockoff Caravaggio. But I do love him, and again, it makes me laugh and makes me smile, which is what good interior design is all about. Home to me is somewhere where you can be unabashedly yourself, where you can come home, take your shoes off, throw yourself down on a sofa and completely sink into your own self and be surrounded by things that you love, things that you cherish, and feel safe and comfortable and protected from the outside, big bad outside world. Okay, Homeworthy, thank you so much for taking the time to come and visit me and the cats in our London home, but unfortunately it's time for you to go now. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.